Enchanted, a storybook life. Adapted by Tennant Redbank. Based on the screenplay written by Bill Kelly. Executive producers Chris Chase, Sunil Prakash, Ezra Swerdlow. Produced by Barry Josephson and Barry Sonnenfeld. Directed by Kevin Luna. Once upon a time in the fairy tale kingdom of Andalusia, a beautiful girl named Giselle was about to marry the man of her dreams, Prince Edward. But if Prince Edward were to be married, his wife would become queen. His stepmother, Queen Nerissa, wasn't ready to give up her throne. So on the prince's wedding day, Queen Nerissa pushed Giselle into an enchanted wishing well. Giselle splashed into the water and sank down, deeper and deeper. It was dark and scary at the bottom of the well. The only light came through 5 holes in a strange metal plate in the well's wall. Giselle pushed on the metal plate and moved it to the side. Then she climbed through the hole and, whiz! A taxi zoomed past. Honk! A chorus of horns greeted her. Screech! Cars slammed on their brakes. They were all trying to avoid Giselle, who had emerged right in the middle of what had to be the busiest street in the world. Queen Nerissa had sent Giselle to a strange, far-off land called New York City. Giselle, still in her poofy white wedding gown, stared at the bright lights and whirling neon all around her. She definitely wasn't in Andalusia anymore. "Pardon me," Giselle called to the people who hurried past. "I wonder if you might direct me to the castle." No one stopped to help her. Miserable, Giselle stumbled down the street. Then suddenly, as if in a dream, she spotted a castle towering high above her. Giselle didn't realize it was only a picture of a castle on a billboard. She leaped on top of a car and climbed up a ladder to the glittering castle. "Hello," she called. "Is there anybody home?" "Hey!" Giselle heard a voice call out. The voice came from a little girl who was standing next to a man on the street below. "Oh, hello," Giselle said politely. Then her foot slipped on the wet ladder. She tumbled backward and plummeted toward the ground. "Catch her, Daddy," the little girl yelled to Robert, the tall man beneath the billboard. Robert did his best. He ran forward and held out his arms. Giselle slammed into him, knocking him to the ground. "Ow wow," Giselle groaned. Robert took pity on Giselle. He invited her back to the apartment where he and his daughter, Morgan, lived. Giselle told them all about Prince Edward and the magical well. "Are you really a princess?" Morgan asked. "Not yet," Giselle said. "But I will be. Soon." Morgan believed every word. Robert didn't. He thought Giselle was a little crazy. And what Robert found in his apartment the next morning didn't change that. Like any good princess, Giselle had summoned help to clean up Robert's untidy apartment. In Andalusia, deer, bunnies, and bluebirds would have answered her call. In New York City, she got help from rats, cockroaches, mice, and pigeons. Robert screamed when he saw his home full of vermin. He removed the pests one by one. But Giselle wasn't upset by Robert's reaction. She had made a new dress for herself out of the living room curtains. She felt very pretty. Robert walked Giselle to Central Park. "Look, Giselle," he said. "I can't help you anymore." Giselle understood. "You've been a kind friend to me," she said. "I'll go." Besides, Giselle knew deep down that her husband-to-be, Prince Edward, would be coming to save her. Robert's heart ached when he saw Giselle walk off. He couldn't leave her alone. She was too innocent. And the big city could be a dangerous place. Robert ran after her. "What's the deal with this prince of yours, anyway?" he asked. "How long have you been together?" "Oh, about a day," Giselle answered casually. "A day?" Robert was stunned. Giselle had met Robert's girlfriend, Nancy, earlier that day, and thought she was perfectly lovely. She asked Robert how long he had been dating her. "It's complicated," Robert replied. "It doesn't have to be," Giselle said. "Not if she knows how much you really love her." And with that, Giselle broke into song. Robert was embarrassed, but he was the only one. Other people in the park started to sing and dance right along with her. Giselle called 2 doves over and gave them a bouquet of wildflowers she had picked. "Take these flowers to Nancy, please," she told them. Meanwhile, trouble was brewing in Andalusia. Giselle's best friend, a chipmunk named Pip, told Prince Edward what had happened to his bride. Edward bravely followed Giselle through the wishing well and was now searching for her all over New York. Queen Nerissa knew that Prince Edward was putting her wicked plan in jeopardy. She sent her spy, Nathaniel, to New York City with 3 very red and very shiny poisoned apples. With a small bite of one of these apples, Giselle would fall into a deep and troubled sleep. Then, when the clock struck 12, Giselle would be gone. For good. Nathaniel quickly tracked down Giselle in Central Park. He gave her the first poisoned apple, disguised as a delicious caramel treat. But Giselle never took a bite. Nathaniel had another plan. At a restaurant, he posed as a waiter and brought Giselle the second apple, crushed into a cool red drink. As Giselle raised the glass to her lips, her friend Pip appeared and knocked it out of her hand, saving her life. "Pip!" Giselle cried joyfully. Nathaniel was furious. He had only one apple left. The next morning, Prince Edward knocked upon Robert's apartment door. "Edward!" Giselle cried when she saw her prince. He swept her into his arms and broke into song. At first, Giselle sang along, but soon she trailed off. "I want to go on a date," Giselle told Edward. And what better place for a date than a costume ball? There just happened to be one the next day. Giselle arrived at the ball looking not like a fairy tale princess, but like a modern woman. Everyone stared at her in awe. She was beautiful. Robert and Giselle danced and danced, but Queen Nerissa watched them from the sidelines. She had come to New York to give Giselle the last poisoned apple herself. One bite of the apple and Giselle crashed to the floor. Edward rushed to kiss his bride-to-be, but this didn't awaken her as it should have. Maybe Robert had to try. "Please don't leave me," Robert whispered. And as his lips touched Giselle's, her eyes fluttered open. "I knew it was you," she said. But Giselle and Robert's kiss was interrupted by a blood-curdling scream. It was Queen Nerissa. She had transformed into a dragon-like monster. She scooped up Robert, then stomped up the side of a skyscraper. Giselle grabbed Edward's sword and ran after them. She threw the sword at the dragon with all her might. The beast lost its grip and plummeted to the street below. Robert was saved. Giselle and Robert continued their kiss, and the two of them lived happily ever after. The end.